G'day guys, this is how to beef up your cooling system on your Pajero. This is a petrol NS Pajero, 3.8 litre. Let's get straight into it. That's the air intake. You need to undo them 2 bolts, 10 millimeters, and remove your air intake assembly. That just involves breaking off those 2 plastic tubes which are just held together by little clips. That's the bottom of the air box where the plastic tubes actually pull out of. It's helpful if you get one of these plastic clip removal tools. You can get them anywhere, Super Cheap Auto or whatever, and you just insert them like that into the top of the clip, pull it out a bit, and then insert it behind the clip and pop the whole thing out, which will just leave a hole. Once you undo all of those off the grill, you can rock the grill forward so you have access to the transmission cooler, because I'm gonna put in an alloy, a big thick alloy radiator, and I'm gonna put in an upgraded transmission cooler bigger than that. When you do rock it forward, just make sure you don't snap the little plastic clips at the bottom, so you might need to lift it up just a little bit before you rock it forward. Okay, you need 12mm socket again, and undo the 2 bolts on each side. So that's the right hand side. You got to undo this bracket. Then that's the belly plate. That has 4 bolts, and they're basically located in each corner. 2 of them are recessed, and then 2 of them are open, I guess, like sort of just like it's pictured. This is underneath the standard radiator, so it's got oil from the transmission that comes in and out, and that's the inlet, and that's the pipe that comes from the transmission and goes. That's the actual inlet. The other one's the outlet, I believe. So I put a catch can underneath and just turn the tap for the radiator to drain all your coolant out. Do it when it's cold. And then get yourself 10mm spanner and just undo the shroud, which is the plastic cover that goes around the fan. It's much easier if you do it when it's cold, because then everything's easy to touch. Undo your overflow hose that comes off the top of the radiator. And then you're going to have to undo the radiator hoses. There's a top one and a bottom one that need to be undone. The top one you can just undo at that end of the pipe if you're not going to replace your radiator hoses, and also that top clip for that radiator hose, just undo that one, and that way the hoses stay in place and you lift the whole radiator out. These pliers are pretty much useless for everything, I reckon, but they are good for undoing these types of radiator clamps, so that's what I used. I'm replacing my hoses with brand new ones, so I pulled the whole hose out in this instance. That's the top. That's where the hot water runs out of and then into the top of the radiator. I really gave mine a polish up and just cleaned everything up with a little wire brush, and yeah, that's the other side. So that's where the cooler water goes back into the engine. If you stick a screwdriver, like I have, into the transmission lines underneath the rubber, it'll make them heaps easier to remove. Once you do remove them, make sure you put a catch can underneath. That way the transmission oil can just go straight into the pan instead of on your concrete. That's the other side. So yeah, stick a screwdriver in, sort of wedge it off, and then twisting the hose really helps. You don't need to remove these barbs, because I mean, if you're just going to maybe keep them for spares or something, but I'm just throwing the whole radiator away. So, but it's a 22mm if you are going to keep them. The shroud actually has a top and a bottom half shell, which I think is brilliant by Mitsubishi, because then if you're doing some work on it, like just changing a thermostat, you can remove just half of the shell. I'm pointing at one clip that you have to pull out, and there's one on each side. So yeah, once you undo the top one, that's half a shell, and then the bottom one's another half a shell. I'll put them aside, and then I remove the entire shroud. At the bottom, there's nothing securing it. They just sit in a hole. And the top, of course, we undid just before with the 10mm spanner. That exposes the fan and the belts and that kind of thing. I actually changed my serpentine belt while I was there, but I removed the radiator first. So yeah, just pull it out, and when you do pull it out, you'll be impressed by how thin it is. It's really a thin unit. Like you'd think a four-wheel drive, would be quite a thick, heavy-duty unit, but it actually looks a little bit undersized, a little bit flimsy. I had a lot of debris in mine, probably from a water crossing. It had lots of little fibres and bits of wood and insects and everything in it, which really affects radiator performance. So I'm glad I'm just going to change it out for an alloy unit. Yeah, filler foam inside of a plastic bag. I thought the way they packed my new radiator was quite ingenious. They've just injected filler foam into a plastic bag. So, but you'll see the new unit there, nice shiny alloy one, made by Alloy Works Australia, is 3 times as thick as the original radiator, which is best viewed in that angle there. For laughs, I measured it, and the original one is 15 millimeters thick, 1.5 centimeters. That's all. And you can see the nice TIG welding in there. I love nice clean TIG welds like that. It's beautiful. 15 mil, the original one, as I was saying, and the aftermarket Alloy Works radiator is actually 50 millimeters. So it's more than 3 times as thick, and it's very lightweight, which is cool. I really liked how they put nutserts. They've welded these little tabs on, and then this is where your shroud bolts up to on it. Instead of having to, try and get your shroud to fit, they've already put the correct brackets in place and a nutsert, so your original bolts, your Mitsubishi bolts, will screw straight in. As I was saying before, the serpentine belt, you might as well do it while the radiator's out because it's really easy. I just took 2 pictures here to show you which way the belt routes. This is on the 6G75 engine, the 3.8 litre petrol. It helps with the new radiator. It helps to bolt that hose on or attach that hose first to the radiator, so you can just drop it straight in. But just going back to the serpentine belt, so just get your 1/2-inch ratchet, and you stick it in that hole. It goes straight in, and then you apply clockwise pressure, and that actually really loosens off the serpentine belt. So yeah, just stick it in, turn it clockwise, and the belt will be really loose, and then you can just pull it off. These are the rubbers. You need these. You need to take these off the original radiator to put them on your Alloy Works radiator. If you buy an Alloy Works one or any eBay one, you'll probably need them rubbers, so don't throw your radiator out just yet. And yeah, there's those bolts bolting straight up to the nutserts I was talking about before as well. So putting it back together, basically I put the 2 brackets on the top, I put the shroud back on, and then the half shells. Keep in mind this is the Alloy Works radiator cap. The new radiator cap is not the same size as the original Mitsubishi one. It's much larger. If you are planning on going serious off-road, I would suggest contacting Alloy Works and getting a spare. I was quite impressed. This is inside the air intake. Mitsubishi have put a cyclone inside of the air intake to create a tunnel effect, a cyclone effect, which is really cool. I reckon that's a great idea for the air intake. But anyway, hook the top hose back on, making sure to remove the plastic stopper that they include on the new radiator. That's a comparison of the old cap and the new one. So yeah, I really suggest getting 2 radiator caps off them, because if you get stuck out bush, you're not going to be able to find this radiator cap. It's a very unique size. And that's everything bolted back in. I like to use at least one of those springy clips, the one on the left, because if you overheat, the hose just pops off. With the one on the right, it won't. Anyway, to the transmission cooler, I put in this new beastie one that's way bigger than the original. Just obviously undo the bolts that bolted up to that center bracket. There's a big pillar that goes down the middle, and that center bracket bolts to that. And then you're going to have to undo the oil line that comes up from underneath. So undo the clip. And this is just a quick photo to show you underneath. And so once I pulled it out, that's the original unit on the left, and that's the beastie new one on the right. You'll notice the bracket that goes around the edge of the new one. I'm going to use that, which you'll see. So I still want to position the transmission cooler in the new position, in the old position, sorry. Oh yeah, this brand new transmission cooler, there was one side of it which wasn't welded. I don't know why. Straight out of factory there was a fault. So I actually drilled a hole in the bracket only, obviously not through the oil tunnel, and then I riveted it, and that's strong as. So I was happy with that, just to rather than trying to get an exchange on it and waiting a week. And that steel oil line there, I'm going to use the brackets off that. At first I was hesitant. I didn't want to cut it and in case I needed it again or something, but it's too late now. I made one cut for the middle. You can just see there, I've just lightly scored it with a grinder. I want these brackets rather than fabricating because they've already got the rubber inserts so that the whole transmission cooler is suspended and has some shock absorption properties with the original rubbers. And I cut the center bracket as well to get it to fit how I want. That's just a mock-up of how I want the brackets to kind of be. And because everything's alloy, I went with the rivets again. That's the piece I cut off the tube before, so I've just marked it up, riveted it straight into the side. You've got to be really careful with the drill not to drill through the gallery, oil gallery there. And that you're just going to have to play around with getting your bracket to position where you want it, but that sits really nice now where I wanted it. It's all suspended by rubber, and it's a good spot for it. And because the oil no longer goes through the radiator, it only goes to this transmission cooler and then back to the tranny. That means, you know, the oil isn't getting unnecessarily heated up by the coolant anymore. So this is underneath the new radiator. Basically, the transmission cooler comes with this hose, and what I want to do is run the inlet and outlet, as I was saying, straight to the transmission cooler, like so, instead of running it through the radiator. I still bought an automatic radiator. There's an oil in and an oil out, and I'm actually, please subscribe, I'm going to make a heat exchanger, and I'll show you how to make a hot water shower. For when you're out bush, you can run your shower water through those galleries and out to your shower, so you can have a hot shower when you're camping. That's the radiator fitted. Looks pretty cool. Heaps cooler. It's going to serve me well when I go around around Australia trip. And yeah, I think the transmission will benefit too. Alright, thanks for watching. Please subscribe.